So are you a big hockey, like obviously you're a hockey fan, but like do you have a team that you're really into?
I didn't want to say anything, but I'm a Devils guy.
Oh,
so
that's all right. I'm an Islanders fan, so the three of us here can just agree to not agree. You know, there's nobody teaming up on each other.
That'll work out.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, like you guys just been trouncing us, all of you, like both teams just been whooping us the last couple of years. We've had no fight in us, so it's fine.
Well, it all goes in waves. So I've learned it all just seems to go in waves. So we'll see what happens this year for sure.
Yeah. Oh, we definitely picked up some guys. We picked up some bodies this year.
Yeah, no, you guys did. That's true.
We should have tried to coax Winger out of retirement, bring him back. Well, all right. So we're gonna get going. I'll let Vinny kick us off here.
So first off, welcome to the show. I'm Vinny Rito with Dirty Economics. So a little bit about me. I'm a real estate agent in the Hudson Valley, and I know a little bit about what you did because Danbury's right here. Like the Hudson Valley and Danbury, we shop at each other's stores and stuff like that. So I remember in the early 2000s, I was, my early 20s, and I was a big hockey fan. So, but during the strike, I never followed UHL I only really followed NHL, but I just remember hearing about it, like reading it through the newspapers and like never really looked too much farther into it. Like I never went to a game, but it always was like something that I was aware of. So actually, Tim had mentioned, like, I just saw this new documentary pop up on Netflix and I was like, okay, cool. Like I remember kind of that being like a local story, 15 years ago. Yeah. So then when I watched the documentary, I was just like, I had no idea like how much history it really was. Like I just knew it was a crazy team that was like doing their thing. Like I had no idea what else it was about. So how did you wind up doing the documentary?
Well, yeah, I mean, they, I think it was like a week or two after Thanksgiving in 2018. McLean Way, one of the Way brothers who, produced the whole Untold series for Netflix, they reached out to me and, we want to talk to you. And I've gotten approached about this story a million times, you know what I mean? Since it ended. So, honestly, I'm tired. I was tired of talking about it. You know what I mean? So I was like, no. So I just kept like, I felt bad. I kept deleting the email, finally, he just kept pestering me. So I'm like, you know what? Let me give this guy at least the respect of a phone call. So we spoke on the phone and he pitched it to me. He's like, listen, he goes, we're doing a series for Netflix. It's about it's a 5-parter. He starts rattling off Malice, Christy Martin, Caitlyn Jenner, all the episodes. And he's like, and we want the Danbury Trashers. And I was like, how is the Danbury Trashers going to fit in with, you know what I mean? And he was like, no. He was like, no, trust me. Trust me, we're going to knock this out of the park if you give us the permission. So me and my dad spoke about it, and we were kind of on the fence about it, to be honest with you, at first. And then we said, well, you know what? Since he's been out, we never really put this story to bed almost together. So we're like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. And they started filming a little over 2 years ago. It was in the summer of 2019. And here we are. It's been a ride.
So it was kind of a cool way for you guys to have closure on it.
Yeah, well, at least we thought, and then now it seems like it's taken on like now it seems to taken on like a life of its own, and it's been crazy, but it's been a ride.
So one of the things. So my name is Tim. Obviously, we've spoken a few times. I'm the owner of the Tri-State Legacy Group. We're a financial services agency. We're independent, and I also own a marketing company. I actually partner with Vinny here in a marketing venture together. But last year, my dad passed in 2019. He's a huge hockey fan, and I was like, it was like something that'd be really cool is to sponsor like a minor league hockey team. And I ended up connecting with somebody from which I think it was the UHL, but now it's the Federal Prospects League. It's like a whole different. They have a different name or whatever.
Yeah.
I connected with a guy for the Port Huron Prowlers. He connected me with someone in Danbury, and then I signed on to be a sponsor for the season for the hat tricks, and I got my hat
Oh,
tricks
nice.
jersey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there it is.
But then they canceled the season because of COVID. And now like I'm
Oh,
sitting here like after like seeing what's going on the internet, like
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I bet people are probably trying to just like I'm waiting for the petition to bring the Trashers back, like to replace the hat tricks. So like one of the things, like I had a really strong relationship with my dad, and he had an accident when it was 2014. The last 5 years of his life, he was incapacitated. But one of the things that I took away from like the whole thing was your relationship with your dad and the respect that you had for him. Could you talk to people about that and how that's influenced you as a man and as a business owner?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been by my dad, literally since birth, but since like 5 years old. I mean, I would go to work with him at 5. I would, spend the majority of, not all of it, but the majority of my summers since kindergarten, I would be with him, and
Yeah.
to be honest, I used to hate it in the beginning because I would be like, what am I doing here? It's like, even as a young kid, I was super confused. I would be at, he always had this huge desk, beautiful desk. And, I would be playing with my Ninja Turtles on the desk, you know what I mean? Instead of like home, and,
Yeah.
for years I used to be like, that was so weird, and like, why'd I have to do that? But as I get older now, I soaked in so much, without even knowing, without even being told like, hey, you're learning a lesson today. You know what I mean? I didn't have to get told that. As I get older, so many things that I do, I kind of can flash back to things that I just subconsciously just kind of soaked in, all those years in that office with them, over in that yard. It was amazing. So, I mean, respect is everything, obviously. I mean, if people don't respect you, it doesn't matter how good your product is. It doesn't matter how good you are at something. That there has to be something more than that. And that's something I learned indirectly, through all those years.
So you turn 17 and you take on the dream of all of us. Like I remember playing NHL franchise mode. I'm sure we've all played Madden before. Like we get it.
Yeah.
Can you kind of pull back the curtain on how you built that team? Because the way that you did it, it was very strategic. Like I think that you did an amazing job. Like I'm not even kidding. I wish the Rangers would hire you. Like Dolan, if you're watching this, hire the guy. Like for God's sake, just hire.
It was impressive at that age that you were willing to even take that on. I know you had the support of your dad behind you, but then to actually be effective at it was like the really great part of the story. It's like, okay, so you got this opportunity at a young age, but then you really made the best of it. You didn't just kind of like enjoy being in this arena with a hockey team. You're like, I'm taking this seriously. I'm going to build this team to be the greatest. Yeah,
I mean, I have a very obsessive personality, which is, it could be good, it could be bad. And at first I didn't want to do it when my dad, when it came out that he was being for real about this whole situation and me doing this with him. Like at first I really wanted to back out because I'm like, because I know myself and I know everything else in my life is now going to become second. I've always had to deal with the stigma of being spoiled, I guess. So it's almost like I knew when this came out, oh, AJ, it's like giving the kid the keys to the Ferrari, that he didn't earn. So it was one of those things where I knew, getting back to respect, I knew I've always had to work twice as hard to gain respect, because let's face it, it's hard for people to see people get put, kind of picked up and dropped on third base. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard for a lot of people, and I understand that. And I've always, from an early age, I've always understood that. So I've always had to work twice as hard for respect, which is not an easy thing. So I knew, all right, well, I'm going to do this. Everything has to go. Everything is secondary now. Everything. I had a girlfriend at the time. You have friends. You're getting ready to go to college. That all kind of became second in my life. And again, I get a lot of credit for the team, and I appreciate it greatly. But we had just a big team in general. It wasn't just me, but I became obsessed. I was obsessed with learning. And back in those days, we didn't have like the tools we have now. I mean, even social media. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's like you kind of just figure a way, when not that we were desperate, but when your back's against the wall and you have to perform, you find a way, and you start making calls, you start talking to people, and we just put it together. It was important. It was important to me that this was a successful thing. And honestly, looping back to the respect factor for my father, anything my dad's ever been a part of that he's put me with him with, I've always felt like a sense of having to make sure he's never feeling embarrassed about something. So, we have to make sure that it's good for him. We have to make sure that in the end that, he made the right decision with what he wanted to do.
Totally.
Yeah, I
Look like you got
definitely.
one.
No, there was he unpacked like so much stuff in that answer from like and one of them is what I found really interesting is that you had to fight against that stigma of, like you were saying, like, oh my gosh, you have this opportunity, and you wanted to make sure that people knew that you weren't just going to squander it, that you weren't just a kid that got handed a brand new toy and you were going to go play with it. Like, you wanted to make sure that people understood, not just people, but probably, even your dad, that you're worth this and you're worthy of it. And it's not just because it comes easy for you because you're very fortunate for your family situation. That's a hard stigma for people to get across. Like, if they don't have those opportunities, they don't necessarily always see how hard your parents or your grandparents had worked in order for their family to be fortunate. So we like to call them must be nicers, must be nice.
Go
ahead.
No, I mean, and it's kind of like a quote. I always tell people, don't judge a man based on what he's given. Judge a man based on what he does with what he's given. See, the thing is, I could give someone $100 today at my gym. What are you going to do with the $100? Are you, I mean, 100. Okay. I'll give you $1,000. What are you going to do with $1,000? Anyone could be given something, but I like to judge people based on what they do with it. Are you going to, like you said, for the majority of people that money will be gone within an hour. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But what do you do with it? Do you invest half of it? Do you save it? Do you, so yeah, I've always understood that I've been fortunate. And look, don't get me wrong. I was very fortunate, but it's not like I grew up in Buckingham Palace. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
It's not like, it's not like, there's levels, right? So I understood. I always was conscious of like how fortunate I was, but especially as a boy, as a man, it's tough because you have to, respect is everything, and to gain it sounds crazy, but in my position, it's almost harder. So you have to work. You have to show people. You can't just tell them, "Hey, I'm a hard worker." You got to show them, and ultimately, you either earn it or you don't.
So you've brought up a really great topic, and something that I talk about when I coach entrepreneurs and stuff is every single day you're going to wake up with the deck stacked against you. Like, how are you what's going to pull you and propel you forward? So knowing, like, with you understanding that, hey, I got to work twice as hard. I got other people's reputations that I'm carrying on my back, and that's I don't know if it will hinder, but it'll just make the respect factor harder. What helped propel you forward? Like, what did you cling to keep your clarity, to stay clear on your goals? Like, because all this outside noise, you totally get it, but like, how did you push forward?
And even now in what you're doing now in your current, your current businesses.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think sometimes, especially entrepreneurship, I hate to say it, but sometimes it's either in you or it's not, So I know that sounds kind of bad, but I think anyone's capable of doing anything they want to do, but you either have the fire or you don't. And the thing is, I guess what's always driven me isn't money, it's respect. And it's kind of like, you don't forget when you're young and your feelings, right? So I remember on the bus being called, mama's boy, daddy's boy, rich boy. Meanwhile, don't get me wrong, a lot of those kids had just as much money. Their parents didn't spend it.
Yeah.
They just didn't have Triple H. They didn't have Triple H at their birthday party.
No, they didn't have the Rocket Triple H. But no, those kids, trust me, they were doing okay. Believe me, their parents just,
sure.
They just, they squeezed a quarter to the Eagle screams. You know what I mean? So, but no, I mean, look, I don't know what's always driven me, I guess, is to make my family proud. That's always been important to me. You almost, it sounds kind of screwed up, but you almost feel a sense of guilt as a kid when you have more than others. Like I always felt, if my dad gave me $10 to bring to school for lunch or like book day or the book thing they used to bring, I would probably give $9 out. I mean, one, that's just how I am naturally, but two, you almost feel a sense of guilt. Like, hey, I have something, Tim doesn't. Here, Tim, here's 9 of my $10. You know what I mean? I've always been that way. And I think what's driven me is to kind of prove to people, hey, listen, I've been lucky and I've been lucky in certain circumstances, but I work just as hard as someone that it comes from nothing. You know what I mean? Who literally doesn't know if he's gonna have a meal tonight. You know what I mean? I work. I mean, I've never been in that position, so it's unfair for me to say, but I probably work as hard. And for me, I know I'm always going to eat at night, God willing, but I need to know I'm going to have respect at the end of every night. You know what I mean? Like if I interact with people, that's like me having a hot meal at night. There's some people that are waking up today and they don't know if they're eating tonight. For me, I have that same burning, desire to make sure when I go to bed tonight, I either gain someone's respect or the respect is still there. It sounds crazy, but that's the same drive I have.
No, I mean, it's not crazy. You have to, you just internalize the things that are going to motivate you and you let them motivate you, right? I mean,
it could be a motivation comes in all different forms. Money, obviously, respect, it could be a lot of different things. And it's just like when you find that thing that truly motivates you, you just gotta, like you said, grasp onto it and let that be your compass, really.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I find it really interesting that, I like the comparison that you were using about how there's people that need to know how they're actually going to survive tomorrow. And then there's people that still don't necessarily have that fear, but also still have that same sense of awareness that they have that drive. So it's like you're always kind of constantly level up what you're doing and constantly trying to compound what you're doing. And I think a lot of that comes from your family. I think a lot of that comes from growing up around, and like you were saying earlier on, like watching your dad being part of it. Like I remember growing up and like my father, owned businesses too. And I was very young and I used to run around the pizzeria and, and watch him work. I was always with them. I was always with what they were doing. And I never really put that together until you mentioned that actually myself. Like I would literally sit next to my dad at his bar and he would sit there and he would be managing it and I'd be reading my comic books.
Yeah, that's it.
I wasn't home with a babysitter.
No, and that's exactly. No, I mean, you would just, they'd want you there. And your father probably came from nothing. So it's like that generation. It's almost like, it's weird because they want you to know. Like my dad never, being humble was always super important to him. I mean, he, came from nothing, obviously, and he wanted me. I mean, I would be in the yard picking garbage, literally. I mean, he wanted me to have that balance, and he and the thing is, I know we're kind of skipping topics here, but going back to motivate you, the thing too is it's almost even more pressure when it's expected that, hey, you're already in a position to do well. If I screw up, that is such an embarrassment. Like if I'm set up in an opportunity where, if there's only one way to really go, and that's down, right? So it's one thing. Look, there's advantages and disadvantages to every walk of life. I mean, if you start at the starting line, I mean, unless you really don't want to move forward, which there are people like that, you take one step and that's technically a success from where you started. Yeah. If you start somebody 10 feet from the finish line and they can't cross the finish line, that's an embarrassment. So I think what's always driven me also is, look, you've been in certain ways set up okay. If you don't make something of it, you're a bum, you're a failure. And honestly, I mean, I just think about my family, like what an embarrassment that would be for all the risks they've taken in life, all the sacrifices, for me to not be able to cross that finish line, or at least get closer to that finish line, whatever that line is, so the next generation, after me can get there. I mean, if you can't do that, you're a bum. And I never wanted to, that's a fear. That's still a fear. You have to, you have to keep pushing.
Yeah, totally, man. So how something that we've talked about with people is having a diverse set of income streams, and like and as a business owner, having a diversification inside of your business portfolio. So I feel like you've done a good job of that. Like, talk a little bit about that.
Well, listen, it's weird because I've always been around business, you know what I mean? So, I know the game, I guess, because it is a game, business as a whole is a game. But I'm also not the best businessman because of what you said. Like, I get fixated on one thing and I have to stick with that one thing. And almost I get myself mentally paralyzed, just worried about this one thing, where if I could delegate more, which is not my strong suit, I can say, hey, Joe Blow, you take care of this for me. Now let me work on something else. Like you said, multiple streams. And I think more than ever, you have to do that. And I think there's so much, with technology, especially, there's so many capabilities that it's a lot easier to do things like that. And it's important. Like you said, I don't think I'm taking advantage of that right now. And that's something I need to do. Yeah. Because it's important. I mean, I think the old days of, working for a company for 40 years, retiring with the gold watch and that's it. Or, starting, or starting a company, running it for 25 years, retiring. Those days are over. You have to, it's like ABC. You kind of have to have, even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you're not starting a business, if you're just, an employee, I guess, there's plenty of opportunities so you could start your own part-time thing. I mean, you have to. And that's one thing I'll say I haven't taken advantage yet. And I think a lot of that is my for whatever the reason, my delegation skills are not the best. So that's something I'm at least aware of and trying to work.
Cool. Yeah, it's hard to build a sphere around you of people that you can help, because sometimes you want to take the responsibility on yourself, and suffering from analysis paralysis, like sometimes overanalyzing a situation. That's something that a lot of entrepreneurs that we talk about in our podcast all have that similar situation. Well, at times they'll be like, oh my gosh, they'll be overanalyzing a situation and then maybe have
I
to.
mean, it like some days I'm at my office and I'm like, I'll like get there and I'll start planning for tomorrow. Like I'm planning to plan. Like instead of just doing, like I'll have my notes. Like I'm old fashioned. I literally like handwrite stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll literally write. I'll
Yeah.
get to the office, and then I'm like, all right. Immediately, it's like, all right, what am I not going to get done today? Let me start writing for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's like you're planning to plan. It's crazy, but yeah, I mean,
It's very normal though. I do it too. Like I'm the same way. Like I have days where I'm like, all right, I got to start planning out the next 2 or 3 days.
It's so insane sometimes, but that's just how it is. But no, there's some days where I really have to push myself and be like, all right, we're not planning anything. We're just gonna literally like get these things done today. And you know, you just try to, you know, progress every day in one form or another.
Yeah.
It's so funny. We've touched a lot on those different like pillar conversations that we usually have. Like we talked about like reputation, we talked about loyalty, and now we're talking about clarity, which is like something that we like to bring up is like there's a mental health aspect to being an entrepreneur where you have to like check in because of those like problems when you're like kind of analyzing yourself to death and maybe causing a little self-doubt. So
yeah,
that's really cool.
No, it's a roller coaster. I mean, there's days I leave my office and I'm like, wow, this is like the pieces are all together. I feel so good. And then there's days I'm like, I want to come back here and torch this whole place. I hate it.
I do the same thing.
I mean, there's days where I leave there and I kind of like look at myself and I'm like, you know what? What am I doing? I would rather work at McDonald's right now. You know what I mean?
So man.
I go get a McFlurry and I'm jealous of the guy taking my order. You know, seriously, no disrespect to the McFlurry guy, but I'm like jealous of that guy. I'm like, here's a guy, he probably has no problems. He takes the order, he takes the money, he goes home, he plays Xbox. I'm over here all night long worrying about this guy. I'm worrying about this person. You know, every decision you make affects every little thing that goes on. And people don't understand the pressure because it's like so many people at my gym will be like, well, why aren't you doing this right now? I'm like, there's a reason, because if I do this, now this affects that. So it's easy from the outside to be like, you know, my dad, you know, one of the things I learned, my dad was a poster child for shoot first and ask questions later. So it was one of those things like I watched from behind the scenes how many times you could tell he regretted certain things.
Yeah.
So I may be a little slower in my process, you know, my thought processes, but there's you're a product of your environment. And maybe I take a little extra time than people around me used to, but you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's two sides to every coin.
That's awesome. What are some things?
Go ahead.
No, mine's a question, but you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so it reminds me, sometimes I tell my kids, think twice, speak once, because sometimes they'll just pop something off and you're like, you did not think out that sentence before you said it to me.
I'm a big fan of the shoot first, ask question later.
Beg for forgiveness as opposed
what is it? Beg for forgiveness as opposed to permission.
Listen, it's one of those things where it has to be a balance. You know, I mean, you have to really, you know, you as an entrepreneur, you analyze every little facet of everything, and you just have to analyze it. And sometimes sometimes you shoot first, it works, it doesn't, and sometimes you take a half step back. Sometimes that works and doesn't work. So there's no matter how many books you read in college or school or whatever, you just got to learn it your way, and you learn your own way of doing things, your processes, and you just got to do it. You can't fear just starting it. You just got to start doing it. And you know, it's like with the boxers. I mean, I tell these guys, you know, in hockey, a goalie could shut you out. And in boxing, there's no shutouts. You're gonna get hit. There's no there hasn't been a fight in the history of boxing where you didn't at least get jabbed in the nose one time. You're gonna get hit. So entrepreneurship is a lot like boxing because you're gonna have good rounds where you dominate or you don't get touched really, but it's impossible. You're gonna get hit. You're gonna take hits.
Yeah.
And it's how you react to it. And you know, you have to bite down on your mouthpiece and just keep punching.
Totally. What are some ways that you keep, like, that you take care of yourself? Like, that you just turn it off and check in with yourself? Like, do you have a couple things you like to do that, or
Listen,
are you just all business all the time?
I probably am the worst person to ask that, and my wife will tell you. I mean, I have not stopped, and it's bad. You have to, and it's funny. And I think I'm going to blame my dad for this one, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Growing up, my dad would always tell me, especially when he was in a good mood, he'd say, I've done all this in my life, so you don't have to live like me. I've done all this, so you don't have to work as hard as me, blah, 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 blah. Great, Dad. Thank you for this. The minute he'd catch me playing Xbox at 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I wish I had it like this. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah. Real hard worker, AJ. Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when I was your age, I was on the back of a truck. You know what I mean? So it's like, damn. So God forbid God forbid at 35 years old, if I feel like taking a day off, like even just to sit here and watch TV, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking of my dad. Oh, must be nice. Yeah, when I was your age, I didn't, when I was your age, I had to split a Big Mac with my 3 brothers 4 ways. You know what I mean? And you're here playing video games. So,
Oh my gosh.
And it's funny because I tell my dad, well, you know what? You didn't have these phones. There is no off anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I try to explain to him, look, it doesn't stop anymore. This phone, this technology, it's 24/7. So I could be sitting here in my pajamas all day long. I'm still working, but he doesn't understand. So I don't rest as much. Rest is super important, especially, and I'm in boxing and fitness and stuff. And they say rest is extremely important for whatever your training regimen is. You have to have strategic rest times. And the same, 1,000% same for business or anything else. And I don't do it like I should, but it's really important that you have to rest. I mean, whatever brings you peace, if it's just sitting on the couch watching TV, or if it's reading or whatever, you have to have something for 100%.
Cool.
I agree with that. That's definitely a big part of it.
So now you have your boxing business. What's that world been like for you? I mean,
insanity. But everything I seem to be around is insane. And I think that's just what it is. I guess I was just, everything I've been a part of is insanity. I mean, boxing, I've been in boxing now 10 and a half years, which is almost scary to think about because it started off as just a fluke, just like with the Trashers, really. And you talk about a business with no regulations, no, like, you two could be professional boxers tomorrow if you wanted to. Like, if you said to me, hey, AJ, can I make a quick $2,500? I can get you a fight within 2 months. And it's insane. But I'll tell you, it's very strategic. And I think I've always been good with like chess. I don't play chess literally, but like with everything I do, it's a chess game. And you learn your ways around it. When I got into boxing, I thought it would be a lot like when I was involved with hockey. Like, okay, I'm just going to come in and take over. Like, we're just going to come in and wreak havoc. I'll learn as I go. Totally different ball game because, listen, with hockey, you pay your league dues. They slap down on your desk a team schedule. And all you got to worry about is playing those games. And it's very simple. Puck goes in the net, you get a goal. You just want to win on the scoreboard or whatever. Yeah. Boxing, you could have a guy training for 3 months straight with no fight in sight. You know what I mean? You have to hustle. You have to politic. You have to build relationships. If you don't have a good relationship or a good reputation in boxing, you have no shot. It's literally some of the greatest boxers in the world. You'll never know because they don't get the chance because they don't have the right people around them. They don't have the certain connections. And it's sad. Whereas in an organized sport, you know, you may be in an obscure league, but they'll find you. You know, if you're as good as, you know what I mean? Like for the most part, in any other sport, if you're playing in an organized league of any kind, someone will eventually, if you keep at it, someone will eventually find you. Boxing, you're just on the I mean, you're so far down in the ocean that unless you have the right contacts, unless you have a good reputation, you have no shot. And it's crazy because I see it all the time. I see kids, young kids in different gyms, different cities that they don't have a good reputation or they don't have the right people around them. They'll never even get a shot. It's crazy. It's a total grind.
Do you feel like, piggybacking off that, do you feel like there's a way to rehabilitate the reputation and make those connections if, say, you stumbled upon them, or is it just too far gone at that point?
You know, it's tough. It's tough with boxing because boxing, you know, here's the thing. You know, Tim could come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to box." Everybody wants to box. You know, anyone who comes into the gym, the first thing they want to do is jump in the ring and start sparring and fighting. You know, the boxing is such a lifestyle, and you don't know if a guy has it or not. And it takes months. The way we do things, it'll take a few months for us to even start really paying attention to you. Because in the beginning, I would take on anyone. You know what I mean? It was kind of like the Trashers, you know, Island of Misfit Toys. I mean, we would take you in, whatever. These guys, they'll, you know, it's a whole process what I do to like even let a guy in with us. And again, you know, you have to know, is this guy a con artist? Is he what is he doing on the side that you may not know about? Does he have a job? What's his marital status? I mean, let me tell you something. If the minute they tell me they have a girlfriend, I'm already turned off because I don't know what's in the water with boxers, but I have to like interview the girlfriend. Like, I'm like, if you have a girlfriend, bring her with you next time because I'll know right away how this is going to go. Okay. I mean, the girlfriend wants to end up managing the guys. They want to start doing this. They want to, it's such a crazy, crazy world, what you deal with in boxing. It's almost like unreal to think that it's even still going, the sport, but it is. There's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of people that it like, you know, it means everything to them. And for a lot of guys and girls, it's the only thing they have.
How did you decide to start getting into boxing? What made you follow that route? Was it a passion for it, like hockey?
No, I didn't watch boxing growing up. I mean, I wasn't even other than Mike Tyson, I couldn't tell you anything about boxing before 2011. And basically, long story short, what happened was I had a friend who, you know, was a trainer, and the trainer needed help with a fighter. And, you know, long story short, I could see that they were looking for me to sponsor a guy, right? So I could tell right away they wanted me to open a checkbook and, you know, hey guys, here's a couple bucks and good luck. But I said, look, I'm not doing that. I'm not just going to like be giving random people money and this and that. So I met with the guys and you know, they basically said, well, you could come on board. You could help kind of steer the ship type of thing. And almost immediately it was like, wow, like I felt a feeling I hadn't felt since, you know, the team ended. And I knew nothing about boxing. And I didn't want to do it. And it kind of brought me back to when my dad was going to tell me to be with the Trashers. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't know what I was doing. And, you know, I was thinking, wow, I'm glad I actually went through with it with the hockey team because it would have been a major regret of mine if I backed out. So I said, you know what? At the time I wasn't married. I don't have any kids. I'm like, you know what? Let me see what this boxing thing's about. And again, with my obsessive personality, I started working with this guy. Then it was like, all right, start working with another kid. You start working with another kid. And next thing you know it, now we need a gym here in Danbury. So then, 6.5 years ago, we started Champs Boxing Club. And it's like, before you know it, you're 6-7 years in deep with something. Like, and I'm like, I've been in boxing like this long. This is crazy, and it's become my life really. And, I think where I get the most pride is, we have a nonprofit out of there, and we do a lot with kids, and that's where I get a lot of my joy, honestly, is working with the kids and trying to give them something special.
That's awesome.
That's great. That's great. That was actually something I was going to bring up too. Like, what type of community involvement do you have with the gym and stuff like that? If you want to talk a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, we have a youth program out of there, and because of COVID, it's kind of been like half and half, but we're hoping things will get a little better again. But we work closely with a lot of the schools here. I don't like to say it's an inner city program, and I'm going to tell you why. I know for a fact I didn't grow up in the inner city, and there's plenty of kids I grew up with that could use a program like this as well. So a lot of boxing gyms, you always hear, oh, it's, good for the inner city kids.
Yeah.
I think it's good for kids in general. And the reason I say that is, like I said, I didn't grow up in the inner city, but I could have used that gym. I know there's a lot of kids battling something. And again, it goes back to what I said, you may not be worrying about if you're going to have a meal at night, but there's still things you're worrying about. You may have anger, you may have family problems, maybe your parents are getting a divorce and you're feeling a certain type of emotion. Maybe you have ADD. Maybe you have, maybe you're getting bullied. I mean, bullying happens. It happens in prep schools. It happens in private schools. So I don't like to say it's an inner city program. It's a program for anyone interested in maybe even finding themselves, because, there's some kids, it's weird, especially for boys. It's almost like, it's weird. I feel like a boy, they like assume they have to be in a sport, right? Like, it's like, it's like a natural question. I find myself doing it sometimes. It's like a natural question to ask a boy, like, hey, what sport? You play any sports, or what are you playing? And there's a lot of kids out there that don't have a sport, like don't play a sport. And, again, you don't play boxing, but it is a sport, but it's also more than that. And I think those kids that don't have that kind of identity in like athletics, I think they love coming to the gym because it technically is a sport. Even if you're not going to compete, it's something you can do. You could do it on your own. You could do it within a group, and you learn a lot about yourself. You can learn a lot about yourself with a boxing gym. And we run a pretty good ship over there, and everyone gets along. It's like its own little community, which is cool. So, the program is great, and it's growing, and hopefully with this COVID stuff, it's like gone, but it's not gone. It's like no one knows where it is. So hopefully it'll just keep getting better.
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
there's definitely a line between athletics and sports, like as far as like team sports for kids. Like, a lot of kids don't feel like, I never thought about joining a team sport. I wasn't interested in being on a team or competing to be on a team. And I didn't really know, being a young kid, that you could do other things like martial arts or wrestling or boxing, or even something like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts.
Of course.
Like, those are like athletics adjacent. You know what I mean? It's not a team sport, but it's athletics. So it gives you a lot of the same values.
We deal with so many kids that don't play any other sports, and it's like exactly that. It's kind of like a niche for them, where it's still athletic, and the parents love it because you could tell they're trying to get their kid involved with something. And like you said, there's a lot of kids that don't want to play football or baseball or basketball. So it's kind of like, it's an individual thing, but you're never by yourself in there. You know what I mean? Right. So it's definitely like, it's a niche market.
That's really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up in Newburgh, which is like 45 minutes from Danbury, but I remember the few boxing clubs that we had, they were always labeled as inner city boxing club. So it's really cool that you made that clarification for people.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
It's 100%. And again, that was kind of like a business decision. Like, it's how you market it, really. I mean,
Of course.
it's one of those things. Like, I came into boxing with fresh eyes because I wasn't involved with boxing, growing up. So, you say to yourself, why, it's like a business thing. Like, why am I going to just take this slice of the market, just inner city kids? And I don't like labeling kids inner city kids. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that has a stigma to it. So, when you label yourself as a thing for inner city kids, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's almost like you're labeling the kids like a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Like, I never liked that whole thing. Inner city kid, like, they're just a kid. You know what I mean?
And you limit it. You limit it.
don't-
And like you said before, there's kids in every type of household that may need help.
yeah.
Money status or where you live does not mean that we know
No.
exactly what happens. And nowadays, you don't have to go to school to be bullied anymore. You can
No.
sit right at home and get bullied from your phone, on the
Yeah.
internet. It's like,
It's crazy.
you used to have to go to school to get bullied when we were kids. Now you can be home.
Yeah, you go home and feel safe. You're out of the limelight. And then now you go on social media and kids are losing their minds. But I think we're living in a world today, in a culture, in a society today, which is totally out of their minds. I think it's good that, you go to my gym and you have a quote unquote inner city kid hanging out with a kid that,
He would never meet.
So that's the other thing. When you label it an inner city gym, you're segregating in a way. You know what I mean? Where here, I got kids from all surrounding towns, cities, even drawing from New York, right? So you get everyone, and they don't know where you're from. They just know, hey, that's Jose, or hey, that's Mark. Hey, it's just all, everyone is the same. You know what I mean? And, there's not a stigma of, okay, it's 5 o'clock. This is for the inner city kid time. You know what I mean? It's like everyone is just mingled amongst each other.
It's awesome.
That's awesome.
So we're getting ready to wrap it up. So one question that we always like to ask is, if you could give an entrepreneur one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be? Somebody that's thinking about jumping into being an entrepreneur.
I would say fail, because the only way you're going to learn is when you mess up, and you cannot fear failure. You cannot feel, and failure, if you fail at something, that doesn't mean it's the end. When you quit, that's the end. You know what I mean? Like if you take a loss, it doesn't mean it's over. You retire. You'll learn more from yourself from a fail than a win. And, listen, you can't fear it. You have to put yourself out there. You got to get a little uncomfortable. And you know what? You're going to learn. It sounds so cliche, but I've learned a lot more from when I've lost or failed than when you win. And that's, it sounds weird, but that's what I would say to do, is just fail, learn. And, failing doesn't mean the end.
Awesome.
Well, man, I got to say thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. It was really, really an awesome surprise when you said you would be on. We were super happy when you agreed to come on.
No, of course, man. I enjoy talking to people, meeting people, and this whole thing's been a super humbling experience.
Yeah, my older boys will be into it. So I have 5 boys. And
nice.
Yeah, my oldest are 13 and 11, so they'll get a kick out of, they know like who you are, so they'll get a kick out of it. Yeah, the younger ones, they don't know anything from anything. They're 5, and the twins are 5 and the baby's 3. So
God bless. 5 boys. That's got to be
a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you, and we're gonna make sure that inside of the link, like inside the chat, there's gonna be the link. So I have links to all of your stuff. I think you sent it in the email. So if you want to learn more about the different things Anthony's involved in, by all means, click the link. And
awesome. And hopefully one day we'll stop by the gym and say hi.
Yeah, anytime you guys are around, let me know.
Sounds awesome, good, man. Thank you.
All right,
good one. All right.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Appreciate your time.
All right.